Jade. Lily?
Gary noticed Lily's face looked grim, tighter with pain than he'd ever seen before.
There got the demon with the hammer. Did they get his hammer?
Clearly taking a severe toll on her body. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, and her hands trembled slightly when she thought no one was looking. She's getting worse. We need to find a cure soon, or... Gary didn't finish the thought. You may take this back, Lenny said, placing a large, thin object wrapped in cloth on the table. Even through the fabric, Gary could feel the black sword's presence, cold and waiting. Thank you, Gary replied, reaching for it, but not yet unwrapping it. After returning to the city, Ray had asked Lenny to investigate the black sword Gary possessed, to see if he could uncover any information about its origins and
Change my shoes.
Is it
Last time
dangerous,
my shoes
like the
on
hammer
my
was?
feet were hurting.
I've determined the sword is safe, Lenny assured him. Unlike the hammer, which was possessed by an evil spirit, a genuine demonic entity, the sword did not react when I cast light magic on it. I tested it extensively with purification spells, holy water, even prayers to the old gods. Nothing triggered a negative response. Does this mean I can keep it, Ray? Gary asked hopefully. The black sword had saved his life multiple times now. The thought of giving it up felt wrong, like losing a part of himself. Ray considered for a long moment.
And there's a duck pond over there.
Believes there are no problems with it. I believe so. Lenny confirmed with a nod.
Marker exchange.
And clearly have been used by the Shadow Plague's
Some
forces.
pill thing.
The hammer and sword themselves aren't inherently evil items. They're tools, incredibly powerful tools, but tools nonetheless. It's the wielder's intent that matters. With the matter of the black sword settled, the conversation shifted to their prisoner. The demon is currently in the dungeon, Lenny explained, his expression growing serious. He's been heavily drugged with sleeping potions to keep him subdued. We're using enough sedatives.
How did it get it so close so tight? How come you can't open it? Well, there's $100 bill in there.
The hammer is very difficult to move. No, that's understating it. When we tried to simply pick it up and carry it away, it pulsated with an incredible amount of magical energy. One wrong move, and I genuinely believe an explosion would occur that would kill everyone within 50 feet. It has a mind of its own? Mark asked skeptically. Essentially, yes. Lenny confirmed. The hammer significant magical abilities. It's drawn to power, especially magical power. might detonate. My suggestion is that a single person with absolutely no magical ability should attempt to remove it from the demon man's hand. I'll do it, Lily said immediately, her voice firm despite her obvious exhaustion. No, Lenny said gently but firmly. I'm afraid your mind is weakened at the moment from fighting the Shadow Plague's influence, and you possess considerable magical abilities. The hammer would sense that immediately. You're exactly the kind of person it would react most violently to. Lily opened her mouth to argue, but you're not strong enough right now. Let me do it, Gary volunteered, sitting up straighter. If an explosion takes place, I'm confident I can defend myself using the black sword. It's nullified magical effects before. Maybe it can protect me from the blast. I'm the least risky option out of all of us. Lenny studied Gary for a moment, then nodded slowly. I do believe you are the best candidate. The black sword might actually give you an advantage that no one else has. Then it's settled, Ray said. The group made their way to the dungeon beneath the city. All other prisoners had been moved to a temporary holding area. For their own safety, the guards claimed, though everyone knew the real reason. If something went catastrophically wrong during the hammer removal, they didn't want dozens of dead on their hands. Most of the group remained outside the dungeon entrance, waiting anxiously. Only Lenny and Gary descended into the depths. The stone stairs spiraled down into darkness, lit only by occasional torches that cast dancing shadows on the walls. The air grew colder with each step, and Gary could feel the weight of the earth pressing down from above.
Will you marry me?
Anatomical drawings showing the demon man's hand, the hammer, and how the weapon had fused
There
with
was
living
something in the grass over there.
Lenny explained, pointing at the illustrations. Muscle fibers have wrapped around the handle like lines. One vessels have threaded through the metal. It's not just holding the hammer is part of it now. That's disgusting, Gary muttered. That's demonic possession, Lenny corrected. And that's why
Look, there's another one.
they finally
This
reached
one's
the back of the
open.
dungeon, a large circular room with a massive furnace. Iron manacles holding his arms and legs spread wide. His head hung forward, unconscious from the drugs. Without the flames that had empowered him before, he looked diminished, almost human. Steam no longer rose from his skin. Gary placed Lenny's diagram on the stone floor and held it down with his foot, so he could reference it without using his hands. He drew the black sword. Easy. We're doing so well. Gary thought. He began to work. The diagram showed exactly where to cut, which muscle fibers to sever. To separate. It was like performing a delicate operation, except the patient was a demon-possessed man, and one wrong cut could trigger a magical explosion. You're doing well, Lenny said, genuinely surprised. Better than I expected. Where did you learn such precision?
Light.
I didn't, Gary admitted, sweat beginning to bead on his forehead. The sword somehow guided my hand. That should worry me, but right now I'll take any help I can get, Gary thought. As he cut deeper, Gary noticed something disturbing. Every time he severed part of the demon man's hand from the hammer, the flesh would begin to grow back almost immediately, reattaching itself to the weapon. It's difficult, Gary said through gritted teeth. Every time I cut something, it regenerates back into the hammer within seconds. Keep trying, Lenny urged. Work faster. You need to sever everything simultaneously before it can heal. Gary's concentration intensified. Sweat dripped from his brow, running into his eyes, but he didn't dare wipe it away. His entire world narrowed to the hammer, the flesh, the blade. Then, suddenly, as he worked, Gary saw them again. The white lines in his vision, the ones that appeared during combat, showing him exactly where to strike for maximum effect. But now they were around his right forearm and hand like a living thing. No! Gary screamed. What's happening? Get it off! Get it off! He tried to shake it away, to cut it with the black sword in his other hand, but the liquid metal was too fast, too adaptable. It flowed between his fingers, covered his palm, and cased his wrist. Then, it solidified. The liquid metal hardened into a gauntlet that fit Gary's arm perfectly. It had the same dark design as the Demon Man's hammer, intricate patterns and symbols. But it was different too. Smaller, sleeker, more fitted to Gary's form. Gary looked toward Lenny, his face pale with horror. His heart hammered in his chest. Help me, Gary said, his voice breaking.
Cut his arm
Please,
off.
Lenny, help me. With her position as an elder, Wilfred stood up slowly. He unrolled a map across the table, marked with red crosses indicating destroyed. Back at Avrion City, another emergency meeting of the elders had been called. The council chamber was tense, every face grim as they gathered around the circular table. Has there been any news on the mysterious beast that's been terrorizing the area around the city? Slivia asked, her voice carrying the weight of authority that came with her position as an elder. Wilfred stood up slowly. He unrolled a map across the table, marked with red crosses indicating destroyed hunting grounds. There have been no direct sightings of the beast itself, Wilfred explained, his finger tracing paths across the map. But we've tracked its movements through the destruction it leaves behind. Our knights have confirmed that the Monk Forest nest has been completely annihilated. Every single beast that lived there has been killed and consumed. The forest is now completely empty.
Someone's walking out from jail. Not there, but on the back side of the fence. He just went onto the sidewalk.
Sir Kay said,
Now he's
there have been
walking up the
increasing
sidewalk.
sightings of beast bones there. Dozens of skeletons picked completely clean. Based on the pattern of destruction, we estimate that if we let this continue unchecked, the swamp beast population will be entirely wiped out within 2 weeks, maybe less. And after that? Humphrey White, one of the elders asked. After that, it will need to find a new food source, Sir Kay said grimly. And the city has plenty of meat. Vaughn shifted uncomfortably in his seat. The implications were clear and terrifying. To most common folk, the disappearance of the beasts might sound like good news. Fewer monsters meant safer roads, safer farms, safer children playing outside the walls. But the elders understood the reality of their world's economy, and it was far more complicated than that. Beasts spawned from something called beast nests, powerful crystalline cores located deep within hunting grounds. These nests were usually surrounded by thousands of beasts and were almost always hidden underground or inside mountains, far from human sight. It was nearly impossible for even the strongest human warriors to locate and destroy one, which is why they'd persisted for centuries. But humans desperately needed beast crystals. They powered nearly everything in modern society: lighting, heating, magical barriers, communication devices, weapons, and armor. The entire infrastructure of civilization ran on harvested beast cores. If the beast nests were destroyed, the beasts would stop spawning. And if the beasts stopped spawning, humanity would slowly grind to a halt, running out of power source by source, until they were thrown back into the Dark Ages. Now that one of Avrion's major hunting grounds had been completely wiped out, it represented a catastrophic hit to their finances. And this was happening just when the city was finally starting to recover from the war and reconstruction. We can't afford this. Not now. Not when we're so close to stability, Slivia thought, her jaw tightening. What about the hills near the eastern mountain range? Vaughn asked. Has the creature ventured there yet? It seems the beast has stayed away from that region for now, Wilfred said, though he didn't sound relieved. We believe this is because that territory belongs to the Wyvern. Slivia breathed a small sigh of relief. If this mystery creature knew better than to disturb the wyvern that nested in the mountains, it at least meant the beast wasn't as powerful as a legendary creature. That gave them a fighting chance.
We need to send a scouting team to the swamps immediately,
Slivia ordered.
We need eyes on this thing. We need to know what we're dealing with.
I've already dispatched our best knights, Sir Kay said with a nod. Monk is leading the team. If anyone can handle this, it's him. Deep in the poison swamp, Monk, Dan, Martha, Badger, and Sloth were currently wading through knee-deep muddy water that smelled like death and rot. The air was thick with humidity and the constant buzz of insects. Every step released bubbles of swamp gas that made their eyes water. Man, this place absolutely reeks, Dan complained, waving a hand in front of his nose. Did we really have to be the ones to come to this godforsaken swamp? I mean, there are other nights, right?
Stop complaining.
Martha snapped, her patience already thin.
The city needs
Oh,
us.
the cigarette
Besides,
butts?
you've done nothing but laze around while the rest of us were rebuilding Avrion. Maybe you can actually make yourself useful this time.
Over there, Monk said quietly, pointing ahead.
Look.
The group quickly pushed through the swamp water toward what Monk had spotted. A massive pile of bones lay half submerged in the muck. The skeleton of an enormous snake, its skull alone the size of a wagon wheel.
It's at least intermediate tier.
Monk said, kneeling to examine the remains more closely.
Probably higher. This was a marsh python, and they're notoriously difficult to kill.
It's exactly like the reports described, Badger observed.
The beast has been eaten completely clean. Not a scrap of flesh left behind. Whatever did this was thorough.
Sloth gulped audibly, his face paled. Hey, are we really going to fight this thing? Because I'm just going to say it. I don't want to die today.
We're here to scout first,
Monk replied calmly.
We have no idea what it looks like, what its capabilities are, or how it hunts. Of course, if we determine we can handle it, then we'll engage. But information is the priority.
You sound so confident. When did the little guy grow up so much? Dan thought, watching Monk. In the time since Ray had left Avrion, Monk had grown tremendously. Not in physical size, but in
This
skill
monk
and
sound like
leadership.
Peter.
After Sir Kay was promoted to Elder, Monk had pushed himself harder than ever, eventually earning promotion to Master Knight. Now Monk trained the new recruits at the Black Sash Academy. At first, students had laughed at him for his small stature, making jokes about children playing soldiers. But Monk had quickly silenced every doubter once he demonstrated his mastery of the Black Sash techniques. His speed was unmatched, his precision perfect. He'd improved more than anyone over this period.
I wanted to go on adventures with Gary, Ray, and Jack,
Monk thought as they continued deeper into the swamp.
the original trio, like the old days. But Ray said it was too dangerous for me.
Those words had stung. They'd also lit a fire inside Monk that burned brighter every day. He would prove himself. He would become strong enough that Ray would never say that again. The group continued traveling through the increasingly treacherous swamp. They began encountering more and more bones. Different species, different sizes, all picked completely clean.
We're following a trail of death.
Badger muttered. They tracked the bones, assuming they were heading toward the creature's lair or hunting ground. It was impossible to tell how long ago the beasts had died. Normally you could judge by decomposition, by how much flesh remained, but there was no flesh to examine. Everything had been consumed. As they ventured deeper, the swamp began to change. The water grew darker, almost black. The trees became twisted and dead. And then, without
Shadow
warning,
play.
a heavy fog rolled in around them. It came fast, too fast to be natural. One moment they could see 50 feet ahead, the next they could barely see their own hands.
Stay close, everyone.
Monk ordered, his voice tight with tension.
Beasts have better eyesight than us in fog. Also, I have a strange feeling about this.
The group proceeded cautiously, step by careful step. But the fog continued to thicken until it completely covered their sight. They could only see each other now, and even that was becoming difficult. I think slowly, turning in a circle.
Which way is back?
The fog was so thick, they'd completely lost their bearings. Monk had been careful not to let them travel too far before this happened, but somehow the fog had surrounded them without warning.
Total 1 mile. 23 minutes, 17 seconds. Steps 2,530 steps.
Taking a tentative step without warning. It was as if the fog itself was a... Monk had been careful not to let them travel too far before this happened, but somehow the fog had surrounded them without warning. It was as if the fog itself was alive and hunting them.
I'm sure it was this way.
Martha said, taking a tentative step forward. The moment her foot came down, the ground beneath her crumbled away like rotten wood. The swamp floor disintegrated, opening into a massive pit that hadn't been there seconds before. Martha screamed as she began to fall. Something shot up from the pit. A long, thick tentacle. It wrapped around Martha's leg with crushing force and began pulling her down into the flush depths. Monk shouted. But while the others scrambled backward in panic, Monk did the opposite. He dove forward, launching himself toward Martha with his enhanced black sash speed.
Nothing can hurt my friends under my watch, especially my woman.
He grabbed Martha with one hand, saw the grotesque appendage wrapped around her leg, and immediately drew his dagger with his other hand. Channeling every ounce of ki into the blade, he struck the tentacle with a slash that glowed with blue energy. The blade, slicing through, the tentacle belonged to shrieked. A sound that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere, echoing through the fog like a banshee's wail. Martha was free. Monk pulled her close and jumped, using the crumbling rocks as stepping stones as they fell into the endless pit below. He leaped from stone to stone. Martha held tight in his
It
arms.
fell in the pit.
Finally reached solid ground again.
Oh.
Thank you, Monk, Martha gasped, trying to catch her breath and calm her racing heart.
You saved my life.
That was incredible, Dan said, helping them up. Look, that was... Then Dan stopped mid-sentence. He noticed something wrong with Monk. The small knight was trembling, his muscles twitching involuntarily, as if he were fighting against some invisible force. Monk? Dan asked. Are you okay? Monk's face had gone pale. Sweat poured down his forehead despite the cool fog. His jaw was clenched so tight that veins stood out on his neck.
Guys,
Monk said, his voice strained and desperate.
don't look for me. Don't come after me. Head back to Africa. Tell them. What are you talking about?
Martha shouted, now genuinely frightened by how he was acting.
Monk, what's wrong?
Something invisible grabbed Monk. Not a tentacle this time, but the fog itself. It wrapped around him like a ghostly and carried him off to space. Monk was torn from the group at lightning speed, pulled backward into the foggy pit. He didn't even have time to scream before he vanished completely, swallowed by the white void.
Monk!
Martha shrieked.
Monk.
After watching Monk get pulled into the deep fog, sacrificing himself to save her, Martha immediately started running toward where he'd disappeared. Her vision blurred with tears, her heart pounding with desperate need to do something, anything.
I won't leave him. Not after everything he's done for me.
But before she could take more than 3 steps, Dan grabbed her arm and yanked her back with surprising strength. No, Martha, what are you doing? Dan shouted, his voice cracking with fear. You don't even know what's down there. You'll just die too.
But Monk is down there.
Martha screamed, struggling against his grip.
We have to save him. We can't just leave him.
Listen to me. Dan's fingers dug into her arm, holding her in place. Look, all we can do right now is what Monk told us to do. Go back to the city and get more help. The sooner we leave, the quicker we can return with a proper rescue team. Going down there alone is suicide.
He's right. But it feels like abandonment, like betrayal.
Martha thought, even as everything in
towards the edge carefully. Do you think he's down there?
Well, he did get pulled in that direction, Sloth said, his voice shaking. But what is this thing? Looks like it means to be closer. Well, look at the edges. This wasn't caused by erosion or a sinkhole. This was dug out.
Dan's face went pale as understanding dawned.
You don't mean... You think this is the beast itself? That the creature this big? Think about it logically,
Sloth replied, forcing himself to stay analytical to avoid panicking.
What else could be strong enough to completely wipe out entire hunting grounds? To kill and consume intermediate and advanced tier beasts like they were nothing. It would have to be at least this massive, maybe bigger.
Martha said nothing throughout this exchange. She stood at the edge of the pit, staring down into the darkness, completely lost in her own tormented thoughts. If only I hadn't moved forward, then I would have been the one to fall. Monk would be safe right now. This is the second time in my life that he saved me, and what have I ever done for him? Nothing. I'm useless. The group held a quick vote on whether to head back immediately or search the area first. In the end, only Martha wanted to stay and investigate, but the others couldn't leave her alone in good conscience. Before departing, they spent an hour walking around the entire circumference of the massive hole. They searched for any traces of Monk, any signs of the creature, any clues about what had happened. But they found nothing. No blood, no torn clothing, no tracks. It was as if the fog and the pit had simply swallowed Monk whole and vanished. Monk has gone missing? Slivia shouted, her fist slamming down on the council table, hard enough to make the other elders jump. I thought you said they would be safe, Sir Kay. You assured me that Monk could handle anything. An emergency meeting had been called the moment the village made their report. Every elder was present, along with the master knights. The atmosphere was tense and accusatory. Sir Kay stood before them, his face heavy with guilt and responsibility.
I'm deeply sorry, Slivia. I had great confidence in Monk's abilities. No matter what threat they encountered, even if it was a king-tier beast, I was certain that Monk would at least be able to escape with the entire group intact. But it appears an unexpected fog clouded their vision and separated them. The circumstances were beyond anything we could have predicted.
Circumstances? Slivia's voice was sharp as a blade. We sent 5 of our best knights into that swamp, and only 4 came back. That's not circumstances. That's a failure of intelligence and planning. But it's my failure most of all. I approved this mission. Monk's blood is on my hands,
Slivia thought, her anger directed inward as much as outward.
Send out a search party immediately.
Slivia commanded, forcing herself to stay focused.
Sir Kay, I want you to lead it personally this time. Take whoever you need. Spare no expense.
The second search party consisted of the same members as before. Dan, Martha, Badger, and Sloth, with Kyle added to the team. Kyle had just returned from a mission in a neighboring city and was exhausted, but he volunteered immediately when he heard Monk was missing. Slivia had insisted on sending a much larger force, 20 knights at minimum, but Sir Kay had argued against it. With respect, Slivia, a smaller group is better suited for this mission, Sir Kay had explained. There will be fewer casualties if something goes wrong, and the enemy, whatever it is, won't see us coming. We'll move faster and quieter with 5 than with 20.
The search party ventured into the swamp day after day, camping in that miserable, stinking wetland night after night. They searched every inch of terrain, following every lead, checking every shadow. But they could never find the massive hole that had appeared before. The pit that had swallowed Monk had simply vanished, as if it had never existed.
Are you absolutely sure it was here? Sir Kay asked on the 5th day, frustration creeping into his normally calm voice. Could you have gotten turned around in the fog? I'm positive it was somewhere around here,
Dan replied, though doubt was beginning to creep into his certainty.
Right, guys?
The other knights exchanged uncertain glances. In truth, none of them was completely sure they were in the right location. The fog had disoriented them badly. The other knights exchanged positive it was here, Sir Kay, that had appeared before. The pit that had swallowed Monk had simply vanished, as if it had never existed.
Are you absolutely sure it was here? Sergei asked on the 5th day, frustration creeping into his normally calm voice. Could you have gotten turned around in the fog? I'm positive it was somewhere around here, Dan replied, though doubt was beginning to creep into his certainty. Right, guys? The other knights exchanged uncertain glances. In truth, none of them was completely sure they were in the right location. The fog had disoriented them badly, and the swamp all looked the same. Twisted trees, murky water, rotting vegetation. After 7 days of fruitless searching, Slivia had no choice but to call off the operation. Resources were stretched too thin, and the knights were needed elsewhere. If Monk hadn't been found by now, there was a high probability he never would be. The news was devastating to everyone, but especially to Martha. She refused to leave her room for 3 days straight, ignoring meals, ignoring visitors, just staring at the wall in numb silence. It became even worse when Martha finally checked the Red Wings guild roster through her system interface. Monk's name had been removed from the active member list. He's really gone. He's dead. And I'm alive because of him, Martha thought, fresh tears streaming down her face. Her friends came to visit her one by one. Dan brought her favorite food. Badger tried to tell jokes. And Sloth just sat with her in silence. But nothing could penetrate the wall of grief she'd built around herself. That's when Slivia came up with an idea. Martha needed hope, even the smallest thread of possibility that Monk might still be alive. She opened her system interface and sent a message directly to Ray. At that exact moment, Ray was standing outside the dungeon, waiting anxiously for Gary to finish removing the cursed gauntlet from the demon man. The message notification appeared in his vision, and he opened it immediately. Ray, can you check if Monk is still on your member list? Slivia's message read. For some reason, we can't see him on ours anymore. We need to know if he's truly gone. Ray's heart sank. He opened his guild menu and scrolled through the list of Red Wings members. When he found Monk's name, his blood ran cold.
The armor wasn't the worst part. His eyes were. Monk's eyes, which had always been bright and full of determination, now looked completely empty. Dead. As if all emotion, all personality, all the essential spark that made Monk who he was had been scooped out and replaced with nothing. He moved mechanically, his gait stiff and unnatural. When he looked at people, he didn't really seem to see them. His gaze passed through them like they were ghosts. Martha had planned to run up to him the instant she saw him, to throw her arms around him and cry with relief. But now she found herself frozen in place, unable to move, unable to speak. This person looked like Monk, but it wasn't Monk. Not really. What happened to you? What did that thing do to you? Martha thought, tears beginning to form. The room was completely silent, except for the sound of Monk's footsteps as he approached the council table. He stopped in front of Slivia and the other elders, standing at rigid attention like a soldier awaiting orders. He reached up with mechanical precision and removed the black sash from around his waist, the symbol of his rank, his achievement, everything he'd worked for and earned. He placed it carefully on the council table, smoothing it out with movements that were just slightly too perfect, too inhuman. Then, without any preamble or explanation, Monk spoke. His voice was flat, emotionless, like someone reading words they didn't understand. I am here to return this, Monk said. The council chamber fell into shocked silence, and the evening Monk, one of their best knights, had just pulled out the black sash he'd earned when he first entered the academy and placed it on the table like it meant nothing. The black sash wasn't just a piece of cloth. It represented years of brutal training, countless hours of practice, and dedication that bordered on obsession. It was the symbol of everything Monk had worked for, everything he'd become. And he just discarded it like trash. Tears instantly filled Martha's eyes. She understood immediately what this gesture meant, what Monk was truly saying by doing this. Before the city had been taken over by the Red Wings, Evrion had maintained strict traditions. Returning your sash to the council meant you were resigning as a knight, voluntarily ending your service. It was considered an honorable discharge, but only if done for legitimate reasons, like injury or family duty. The Red Wings had kept most of these old systems in place, changing only the upper management and some policies, but the symbolism of the sash remained sacred. Monk, Slivia said, her voice strained but strong. You do know what this means, don't you? Once you return your sash, there's no coming back. This is permanent. Monk's empty eyes met hers without flinching. I came back to this city for this reason only, to make my resignation official. There's no longer any need for anyone to go looking for me. As you can all see, I'm safe and sound. What happened to you, Monk? Dan shouted, jumping to his feet. Are you possessed by the shadow plague? Is that why you're doing this? Because we can help you. We can fight it. Monk slowly shook his head, the gesture mechanical and deliberate. Lies! Martha cried out, no longer able to contain herself. I don't believe it. What happened to you down in that hole? What about the beast? Did it do something to you? Her voice broke on the last words, desperation and anguish bleeding through. Answer her, Monk, Slivia commanded, slamming her hand on the table. That's an order. Ever since Slivia had become an elder, she'd maintained perfect composure in every situation. She'd faced budget crises, political challenges, and military threats with calm professionalism. But this was the first time her emotions were truly getting the better of her, cracking through her carefully maintained facade. Of course, that was because Monk wasn't just another knight to her. He was someone else, someone who'd fought beside her through thick and thin, someone she trained with, laughed with, and nearly died with more times than she could count. We're family. How can you turn your back on family? Slivia thought. Now I've returned this sash, I am no longer under your authority, Monk said calmly, his voice completely devoid of emotion. I have no obligation to answer your demands. He paused, then added, but if you genuinely believe I'm
was agonizing. Even grown warriors would scream in unbearable agony as the light magic forced the shadow to reveal itself, the two forces battling for control inside the victim's body. If Monk was infected, the white magic would cause him excruciating pain and make the corruption visible. If he wasn't infected, there would be no reaction at all. Humphrey, Slivia said quietly, her voice heavy with reluctant hope. Please. Stood up slowly from his seat. He walked around the circular table with measured steps until he stood beside Monk. If you don't mind, Humphrey said gently, raising his weathered hands to hover just above Monk's head. The head was always where healing magic was applied first. The shadow plague tried to infect the brain initially. If it succeeded in taking over the mind, it would either use the body as a host for the true infected, or simply kill the person from the inside out.
Total 2 miles. 45 minutes, 41 seconds. Steps 5,050 steps.
Or simply kill the person from the inside out. Humphrey's hands began to glow with pure white light, so bright it hurt to look at them directly. The light grew more intense, flooding the entire room with radiance. Everyone leaned forward, expecting some kind of reaction, screaming, writhing, black smoke rising from Monk's body as the shadow was forced out. But there was nothing. No pain, no smoke, no reaction whatsoever. Monk just stood there, completely unaffected, as if Humphrey was merely waving his hands around for show.
No, this can't be right. There has to be the shadow in him. There has to be.
Martha thought, her last hope crumbling. Sir Kay had remained silent at the table the entire time, but he finally couldn't hold back any longer. He stood up, and when he spoke, his voice carried more emotion than anyone had heard from him in years. Monk, Sir Kay said, you can leave this academy. You can leave this city. I'm fine with all of that. People have the right to choose their own path. His voice hardened. But what I need to know, what I must know before you walk out that door, is that this is truly your choice. Not coercion, not blackmail, not mind control. Your choice. The question hung in the air like a sword suspended by a thread. Monk didn't hesitate even for a moment.
It is.
Those two words hit harder than any blow.
But what about Ray?
Slivia asked, desperation creeping into her voice now.
Are you really willing to betray him after everything he's done for you? He saved your life, Monk. He gave you purpose. He made you who you are today.
For the first time since entering the room, Monk truly hesitated. It was only for a brief second, a flicker of something that might have been doubt or pain crossing his empty eyes. But everyone noticed suddenly shouted, emotion finally breaking through his mechanical calm.
Why should I spend it following in the footsteps of others? Why should I live for someone else's dreams instead of my own?
The outburst shocked everyone. It was the most emotion Monk had shown since returning. Wilfred finally stood up from his seat. He raised one hand, and the gesture commanded immediate silence.
I believe we have heard enough.
Wilfred said, his voice carrying the weight of authority and disappointment.
Not only have you disrespected this academy and everything it stands for, but you are now also disrespecting our savior. If it weren't for Ray, we would all be dead right now, you included. The shadow plague would have destroyed this city and everyone in it.
He paused, letting his words sink in.
We will accept your decision to leave our ranks, Wilfred continued, each word deliberate. But understand this. You may never set foot in this city again. You are banished, monk. If you return, you will be treated as an enemy and dealt with accordingly.
Why? So he's not
The
free to make
sentence
his
was
own
harsh but fair.
choice?
Banishment was the traditional punishment for knights who deserted their posts. Monk bowed deeply to Wilfred, a gesture of respect that seemed almost mocking given the circumstances. Thank you for understanding, Monk said, his voice returning to that flat, emotionless tone. Originally, I wasn't planning to return to this city at all, but I wanted to let you all know I was safe. I wanted to make everything official and proper. I owed you that much at least. He turned and began walking toward the door with that same mechanical gait. As he moved, the light from the windows caught something on his back, a marking visible through his shirt. Everyone's breath caught in their throats. The symbol was unmistakable. Two dark wings spread wide, with a single eye in the center. The mark of the Dark Guild. No, it can't be. Not the Dark Guild. Anyone but them. Martha thought, feeling like she'd been punched in the stomach. I hope, Monk said without turning around, his hand on the door handle, that we never have to meet on the battlefield, for both our sakes. Then he used his shadow step skill and vanished like smoke dissolving into the air. That day truly devastated morale throughout the entire city. They had lost one of their strongest allies, and it had happened so suddenly, so unexpectedly. It wasn't over some massive war or glorious last stand like warriors usually fell. Someone had simply decided to walk over to the enemy's side. Without a doubt, everyone who'd been in that room had seen the Dark Guild marking on Monk's back. Something had fundamentally changed about him during those weeks in the swamp. He wasn't the same person who'd gone down into that pit. Maybe the Dark Guild had answers. Maybe they'd done something to him that the white magic couldn't detect. For days afterward, Martha refused to believe that Monk had truly left by choice. She locked herself in her room again, replaying every conversation, every moment, searching for clues she might have missed. If he was already working with the Dark Guild, then why did he save me in the swamp? Why sacrifice himself? That doesn't make sense. None of this makes sense. 1 week after Monk's departure, an emergency meeting was called, but not in the council chamber this time. Slivia had requested that everyone gather on the outdoor training field. When Martha and the others arrived, they found Slivia standing before them in her old armor, the battle-worn plate she'd worn as a knight before becoming an elder. She put aside the white robes that indicated her new station and returned to the gear of a warrior. Her sword hung at her hip, freshly sharpened. Assembled before Slivia were all her old roommates. I've called you here today because I have a request, Slivia said, her voice steady, but her eyes blazing with determination. As you all know, a dear friend of ours has apparently joined the Dark Guild. But I do not believe he went there by choice, Slivia continued. Perhaps he was threatened. Maybe they're holding something over him. Information we don't know about. Leverage we can't see. Or maybe... She paused. Maybe they've done something to his mind that even white magic can't detect. Hope flickered in Martha's chest for the first time in days. All I know for certain, Slivia said, is that it was not the same person we trained with. That was not our monk. Something is wrong, and I intend to find out what. She drew her sword, holding it up so the afternoon sun glinted off the blade. What I'm about to ask you is dangerous, potentially suicidal actually, Slivia said bluntly, which is why I'm only asking the people gathered here. People who care for Monk as much as I do. People who know in their hearts that something is deeply wrong. She met each person's eyes in turn. I plan to infiltrate the Dark Guild, Slivia declared, her voice ringing with conviction. I'm going to bring him home, by force if necessary. While Slivia and the group dealt with Monk's issue, Ray and his party members stood just outside the heavy iron door that led down to the underground dungeon. Then, Ray fell felt it. A massive surge of energy erupted from beneath their feet, so powerful it made the stone floor tremble. The sensation was unmistakable, dark, corrupted, overwhelming. It was the same energy signature he'd felt from the Demon Man during their battle. Ray's heart sank. "He's awake," he whispered. "What?" Jack asked, his hand immediately moving to his weapon. "The Demon Man. He's woken up." Ray didn't wait for a response. He burst through the doors and raced down the stone staircase, taking the steps 3 at a time. His mind raced with worst-case scenarios. Had Lenny's rope failed? Was Gary in danger? Had the Demon Man already killed them both? As the dungeon door swung open, a wave of intense heat blasted up from below. So hot, it felt like opening an oven door. The air shimmered and distorted. Ark stumbled back from the heat. "Gosh above, you don't think the Demon Man has actually woken up, do you?" "If he has," Lily said, her voice tight with worry, "then Ray will need all of us. We barely defeated that thing together last time. He can't face it alone." They all rushed down the stairs after Ray, weapons drawn and hearts pounding. What Ray saw when he reached the bottom stopped him in his tracks. The Demon Man still lay on the floor, unconscious and motionless. Lenny stood pressed against the far wall, his face pale with shock. And in the center of the room stood Gary, but something was terribly, terribly wrong. The hammer, the dragon hammer that had been fused to the Demon Man's arm, was no longer there. Instead, it had transformed into something else entirely. The weapon had become liquid, like living metal, and it was crawling up Gary's arm. Ray watched in horror as the substance formed itself into an ornate gauntlet around Gary's hand and forearm, the metal solidifying as it moved, the same blue glow pulsing beneath its surface. "This is very bad," Lenny shouted, his voice cracking with panic. "Very, very bad." Gary's head was tilted forward, his face hidden in shadow. But then he looked up, and Ray forgot to breathe. His friend's eyes were no longer their normal color. They glowed bright yellow, like molten gold, like fire burning from within. An inhuman light showed that Gary was no longer in control. Gary raised his gauntleted hand, examining it with a mixture of curiosity and satisfaction. The air around him began to shimmer and warp from the heat radiating off the metal. Blue light pulsed through the engravings on the gauntlet, growing brighter with each passing second. "This is a very nice fit for me," Gary said, but his voice was wrong. It was deeper, rougher, layered with something that sounded like multiple voices speaking at once. "Much better than that pathetic miner." Gary called out, desperately hoping his friend was still in there somewhere. "Gary, can you hear me? Fight it. You have to fight it." The rest of the party arrived just then, skidding to a halt as they saw the scene before them. "No!" Art breathed. "Was he possessed? Did the hammer take him over?" "That idiot," Jack muttered, though his voice betrayed real concern beneath the harsh words. "He just had to go and cause trouble for all of us." Lenny, who stood closest to Gary, made a desperate decision. He flung himself forward, probably hoping to subdue Gary before the possession took full hold. Perhaps he had some spell or device that could help. But before Lenny could close even half the distance, Gary simply lifted his gauntleted hand into the air. A brilliant flash of blue light erupted from the metal. It felt like staring directly into the sun. Ray threw his arm up to shield his eyes.
Please.
The dungeon was empty, except for the unconscious Demon Man
Someone might
and
look
the
for it.
investigation team. No.
What?
Surprise and pain. The light lasted only seconds, but when Ray could finally see again, blinking away the spots dancing in his vision, Gary was gone. The dungeon was empty, except for the unconscious indication of what kind of magic had transported her away. It was as if Gary had simply ceased to exist in that spot. Put the city on high alert, Lily commanded, her voice sharp with urgency as she climbed back up the stairs. We need to find him. We need to find the Demon Man before... She took 2 more steps and then staggered, her hand reaching for the wall to steady herself. Her legs buckled beneath her. Lily! Sam caught her before she hit the ground. Her skin was burning hot to the touch. Dark veins were spreading rapidly across her neck and face. The shadow infection was accelerating. I'm fine, she whispered, but she clearly wasn't. Just find Gary, please. Within the hour, every guard and guild member in Kelberg had been mobilized. Search parties scoured every district, every alley, every abandoned building. The city gates were locked down tight. Nobody in, nobody out. If Gary was still within the walls, they would find him. It wasn't that simple. The gauntlet had transported Gary somewhere, and he could be anywhere by now. Sitting alone in his room at the inn, Ray opened his system interface, desperately hoping to see Gary's name in his party roster. Maybe the contract was still active. Maybe he could use it to track Gary's location. The notification that greeted him felt like a punch to the gut. Contract broken. Party member Gary. Status unknown. The magical contract that bound the Red Wings together had been severed. Whatever had happened to Gary, whatever the gauntlet had done to him, it had fundamentally changed him enough to break the bond. Ray's thoughts immediately went to Monk. When Monk's contract had broken, Ray had assumed the worst. But if Gary's situation was similar, then maybe Monk was still alive too. Maybe he was just possessed or controlled by something, not actually dead. A message came through the system. It was Slivia. I'm sorry I couldn't contact you sooner. About Monk. He's chosen to join the Dark Guild. Willingly. We tried to convince him otherwise, but he wouldn't listen. We're planning to bring him back, but I thought you should know. First Monk, now Gary. 2 of his closest friends lost to the darkness in different ways. Both of them connected to that same symbol, the eye with wings. The mark of something far more dangerous than he'd understood. If it came down to a fight, if Monk had truly chosen the Dark Guild over the Red Wings, Ray would have to face him. And now, if they found Gary, he might have to fight him too. The thought made Ray feel sick. 3 days passed with no sign of Gary. Lily had been confined to her bed in the castle, where white mages took turns using healing magic to slow the shadow infection's spread. Each session left her weaker, but it was buying her time. The investigation team had been reduced to 4 members: Lenny, Ray, Jack, and Ark. With no leads on Gary's location, they decided to pursue the only other source of information they had. Versi, the man who'd been the Demon Man before Gary.
Yeah, I just
Versi
go
had
back
been
in.
kept under observation in Kelberg's hospital. After the hammer had left his body, his missing hand had somehow regenerated completely, a feat that baffled the doctors and priests who examined him. The city guards had questioned him extensively and determined he posed no threat, but they kept him under watch regardless. Ray and his companions entered the hospital room to find Versi sitting up in bed, looking thin and confused, but otherwise healthy. Under a feat that Versi had been kept under observation to pursue the only other source of information they had. Versi, the man who'd been the Demon Man before Gary. Versi had been kept under observation in Kelberg's hospital. After the hammer had left his body, his missing hand had somehow regenerated completely, a feat that baffled the doctors and priests who examined him. The city guards had questioned him extensively and determined he posed no threat, but they kept him under watch regardless. Ray and his companions entered the hospital room to find Versi sitting up in bed, looking thin and confused, but otherwise healthy. I see you're finally awake, Lenny said, approaching the bed. Versi looked at them with genuine confusion. Who are you people? Did the doctor send you? So you don't remember us at all, Lenny mused. That's concerning. Let me ask you something. anything about the hammer that came into your possession? The hammer? Percy's brow furrowed as he tried to remember. Well, yes, I worked as a miner, you see, in the mountains east of here. One day, my crew and I were deep in a cave system, extracting iron ore from a new vein we'd discovered. That's when I heard it. Heard what? Ark asked. A voice, Percy said quietly. Or maybe not a voice exactly. More like a calling, a pull. Something was reaching out to me specifically. At first, I thought maybe a child had gotten lost in the caves. So I left my crew and went to investigate, following the tunnels deeper than we'd ever gone before. He paused, his hands trembling slightly at the memory. I found a chamber, Percy continued, ancient, sealed for who knows how long. And there in the center, lying on a stone pedestal, was the hammer. The moment I saw it, I knew it was what had been calling me. I tried to resist. Something about it felt wrong, you know? But I couldn't help myself. When I touched it... That was the last thing you remember? Jack prompted. Yes. Everything after that is just darkness. Occasionally I have these flashes of awareness, like dreams of fire and destruction. But I couldn't control anything. And then I woke up here. Ray had been watching Percy's face carefully during the entire story, looking for any sign of deception. But the man seemed genuinely traumatized and confused. Still, Ray needed to be certain. He stepped forward and... I live with my sick mother and support her with my wages from the mine. Ray released the skill, and Percy blinked several times, looking confused but unharmed. The four of them left the hospital room and gathered in the hallway outside. So, Percy really was just an ordinary person, Ark said, leaning against the wall. Doesn't that mean all that immense power we witness? The fire, the destruction, the ability to fight all of us at once. All of it came from the hammer. Yes, Lenny said gravely. And
Total 3 miles. 1 hour 14 minutes 5 seconds. Step 7,581 steps.
Think about it, Lenny explained. The hammer possessed a simple minor equation. Percy really was just an ordinary person, Ark said, leaning against the wall. Doesn't that mean all that immense power we witness? The fire, the destruction, the ability to fight all of us at once. All of it came from the hammer. Yes, Lenny said gravely, and that's precisely what makes this situation so catastrophically dangerous. What do you mean? Jack asked. Think about it, Lenny explained. The hammer possessed a simple miner with no skills, no training, no combat experience whatsoever, and yet it transformed him into something that someone who's already a skilled warrior, someone who knows how to fight, someone with actual power. Mark audibly gulped, afraid to imagine the consequences.
Is that a four-wheeler or like a motorcycle? Is that like a trike?
While Lenny and the others were busy in urgent discussions about their next move, Ark decided to slip away and check on Lily. She'd been through so much lately. The demon battle, Berg's death, the constant struggle against the shadow plague infection in her body. He needed to see if she was recovering.
Really?
He knocked softly on her door, then entered when he heard her weak response. Inside her chambers, Lily lay on her bed, her body covered in sweat that had soaked through her nightclothes. She looked pale, exhausted, and trembling slightly, but there was color returning to her face now. The white magic is working. Slowly, but it's working, Ark thought with relief. How are you feeling? Ark asked quietly, approaching her bedside. Like I've been turned inside out, Lily mumbled, managing a weak smile. But I'm better. Much better than yesterday. During Ark's time at Fallen Angel, Lily had always looked out for him. When other guild members mocked his fighting style or questioned his dedication, Lily had defended him. When he'd been injured on missions, she'd personally ensured he received proper care. She treated him like family. why Mark's betrayal had hit Ark so hard. Not just because Mark had tried to destroy the city, but because he turned against people like Lily, who trusted him completely. And through all of that, even when Ark had been a member of the Traitor Guild, Lily had never once thought of him as a traitor. She'd known his heart. "Please get better soon," Ark said, adjusting her blanket and making sure water was within reach. "We still need you." Lily's eyes had already closed, exhaustion pulling her back towards sleep. Ark left quietly, closing the door behind him with care. He decided to head to the castle canteen for some food. His stomach had been growling for the past hour, and he'd skipped breakfast entirely that morning. Due to the investigation team's achievements in stopping the Fallen Angel conspiracy and protecting the city, they'd been granted rooms in the castle itself, so now they didn't need to worry about paying for lodging or meals. The canteen was completely empty when he arrived. It was late afternoon, well past the normal lunch hours, and everyone had long since eaten and returned to their duties. The kitchen staff had mostly gone home, leaving only a skeleton crew to handle stragglers. While Ark was busy selecting food and loading his plate, a guard approached him from behind. "Excuse me, are you Ark, from the investigation team?" Ark turned, surprised. "Yes, that's me." The guard smiled warmly. "I wanted to thank you personally for all the help you and your friends have given to our city. If it weren't for you, who knows what would have happened?" "Oh, please don't thank me," Ark replied quickly, feeling embarrassed. "It's the others you need to thank. Ray, Gary, Jack, Lenny. They're the real heroes. I just helped where I could." "Nonsense," the guard said, his smile widening. "Don't think I don't know about your reputation when you were a member of Fallen Angel. You were one of their best fighters. I have absolutely no doubt that you played a major part in retaking the West Outpost from those traitors." Ark wanted to correct him, to explain that he really hadn't done much compared to the others. In terms of pure skill and power, Ray, Gary, and Jack were far above what he was capable of. Suddenly, Ark heard something. Whispers. Faint at first, like someone speaking from very far away. Then growing louder, more insistent, echoing inside his skull.
No.
"What?" Ark thought, his hand freezing mid-reach for a piece of bread. The voice was almost recognizable, familiar in a way that made his skin crawl. It was Gary's voice, but wrong somehow. The voice whispered, "Take him out, then come follow my voice." "No, that's not Gary. That can't be Gary. This is some kind of trick." Ark? What's wrong?" the guard asked. "Are you feeling all right?" "Take him out now," Gary's voice commanded, more forceful this time. "Do it. You know you want to."
What?
And the horrible thing was, some dark corner of his mind found the idea satisfying, even exciting.
Why? Why is the good guy?
Then, as if his body had been taken over by Ark's hand on its own. His fist shot out and connected with the guard's stomach, not killing, but hard enough to knock the wind from his lungs. The guard's eyes went wide with shock and pain. He collapsed to the floor like a sack of grain, gasping for air. "What have I done? Why did I?" Ark thought, horror flooding through him. Gary's voice purred with satisfaction. "Now run. Follow my voice. Don't let anyone see you." Ark's legs began moving without his conscious control. While his mind screamed at him to stop, to help the injured guard, to call for assistance. But even as he tried to resist, he realized something terrible. He didn't really want to stop. Giving in to the voice felt good. "No, that's the corruption talking. That's not me. That's not who I am." Taking turns automatically, avoiding servants and guards with unnatural precision. It was as if someone else was steering him like a
habit, knowing exactly where to go and when. He burst through a side door and into the city streets, his feet carrying him away from the wealthy merchant district near the castle and toward the poorer sections of town. The voice led him deeper into the slums, a part of the city most nobles pretended didn't exist. Here, homeless people huddled in doorways, their clothes little more than rags. Children with hollow eyes watched him pass. The houses looked like they might collapse at any moment, their walls warped and rotting. The voice guided him down narrower and narrower streets until he entered a dark alleyway that smelled of garbage and human waste. At the far end of the alley stood a hooded figure, barely visible in the shadows. The moment Ark saw the figure, his body responded automatically. He dropped to one knee and bowed his head. Gary? Ark asked, his voice coming out strained. Is that you?
Daddy.
The hooded figure reached up and pulled back his hood, revealing his face in the dim light, filtering into the alley. Yes, it was Gary, but changed. The gauntlet on his right arm pulsed with dark energy, shadows writhing across its surface like living things. Even from several feet away, Ark could feel the power radiating from it, corrupt, hungry, and wrong. Yes, it's me, Gary said. Why do you not look me in the face, Ark? Are you scared of me? Ark kept his eyes fixed on the ground. He felt instinctively that if he looked Gary directly in the face, something terrible would happen. The shadows would consume him, drag him into whatever dark place Gary now inhabited, and he would never come back. You think I'm possessed, don't you? Gary said, amusement coloring his tone. But know this, Ark. I am the same person I have always been. The shadow hasn't taken me over. It's simply shown me the true path, my true calling. It's opened my eyes to possibilities I never imagined. Ark remained silent and motionless, barely breathing. He felt like one wrong word, one wrong movement would trigger Gary to attack. And in his current state, Ark knew he wouldn't survive even 10 seconds against whatever Gary had become. Gary seemed to read his mind. A cold smile spread across his face. Don't worry, old friend. I don't plan to kill you. You're much more valuable to me alive. Gary began pacing slowly, his gauntlet in hand flexing. I want you to deliver a message to my dear friend Ray. Can you do that for me? Ark tensed even more. I will be heading north past Avrian City and deep into the Shadow Plague's territory. There's a fortress at the border called Gortheim. That's where I'll be waiting. Gary held up one finger, the gesture almost playful despite the menace in his eyes. 1 year. That's the time limit. Tell Ray to bring his army and attack the fortress. I'll be waiting there for him, ready to settle things between us once and for all. He paused, letting that sink in, then added casually, and if he doesn't come before the year is up, if he's too much of a coward to face me. The gauntlet flared with red light. Then I will personally attack Avrion. I'll burn it to the ground and kill everyone inside. Ark couldn't hold his silence any longer. The words burst out of him before he could stop them. I'll deliver your message, Gary. I swear I will. First, please, just listen to me for one moment. Ark finally raised his eyes to meet Gary's. I know you're still in there somewhere. The real you. The person who saved my life. Who made me laugh even in the darkest times. Come back to us. Let Ray help you. Your friends can save you from whatever this is. Gary slowly shook his head, his expression almost pitying. You still don't understand, do you? As I already said, this is me speaking. The real me, not some puppet or possessed shell. His voice hardened. You haven't known me very long, have you, Ark? In fact, you haven't known Ray that long either. But I have known him for years. And I'll tell you a secret. Gary leaned forward, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper.
Ray isn't like us. Ray has never, not once in his entire life, truly considered any of us his friends. We're tools to him, useful pieces in his grand game. Oh, he pretends to care, but when it comes down to it, he'll sacrifice any of us without hesitation if it serves his goals. I know what you're thinking, Gary said with a knowing smile. You think I'm lying, that the corruption has twisted my mind. But think about it, Ark. Really think. Have you ever seen Ray truly vulnerable? Have you ever seen him need anyone? Gary extended his gauntleted hand toward Ark's face, palm up, offering. Why don't you join us, Ark? You felt it, didn't you? When my voice guided you here, when you struck that guard, when you stopped fighting and just let the power flow through you. It felt good, didn't it? Natural. Like this is what you were always meant to be. The gauntlet pulsed with energy, and Ark could feel its pull, a seductive promise of strength, of freedom from doubt and fear. So tell me, Gary said softly, dangerously, will you be riding with me to the fortress now? Or will you be riding there in a year with Ray's doomed army? Ark was visibly shaking, his whole body trembling with terror and temptation. He knew that if he gave the wrong answer, Gary might kill him right here, despite his earlier promise. But he also knew, deep in his heart, that he couldn't join the Shadow Clan. Not after seeing what they'd done to his guild, how they'd corrupted Mark's mind, how they'd turned good people into monsters. Just when Ark felt like he was finally settling into a new life, finding a new family after fallen Angel's destruction, the Shadow wanted to take it all away again. Yes, Ark said, his voice growing stronger with each word. I will be riding to the fortress, but I'll be riding there in 1 year from now, and I'll be riding with Ray. We will defeat the Shadow Plague. We will destroy that fortress. We will take you back with us, Gary. Back home where you belong. It's a shame, Gary said, stepping backward into the shadows of the alley. I see you're still blinded by Ray's strength, just as I once was. You worship his power and mistake it for friendship. You'll learn the truth eventually, Ark. Everyone does. His form began to dissolve into darkness, becoming one with the shadows around him. Gary's voice echoed from everywhere and nowhere. 1 year. Don't be late. Hate to have to burn Avrion to the ground just because Ray was too scared to face me. Then he was gone, vanished as completely as if he'd never existed. After Gary disappeared into the shadows, Ark remained in the alley, drenched in sweat. His entire body trembled, not from cold, but from the lingering fear of the confrontation. I spoke to him like that. Gary could have killed me instantly, crushed me like an insect. What came over me? Maybe it was because everything in his life seemed to be falling apart. Maybe he was simply tired of being afraid. But somehow, in that moment, Ark had found the courage to speak his true feelings directly to Gary's corrupted face. And he'd survived. After collecting himself, Ark headed back to the castle and immediately called an emergency meeting for the investigation team. Now everyone sat around a table in the castle's dining hall. Ray, Jack, Lenny, and Ark himself. Lily insisted on joining, but her body didn't support her choice, and in the end, she had to remain in her bed. It was late evening. The sky outside the tall windows had turned black, dotted with stars. Few people remained in the castle at this hour, just a handful of guards making their rounds, and some maids finishing their duties. The dining hall was otherwise empty, their lone table illuminated by flickering candles. Ark had just finished explaining everything. Gary's appearance, his demands, the 1 year ultimatum, the threat against Avrion. But why would Gary ask for specifically 1 year? Jack asked, confusion clear on his face. If he's so powerful now, why wait? Why give us time to prepare? Lenny stroked his beard thoughtfully.
If I were to make a guess, it might be because the demon inside the gauntlet is still struggling for complete control. Gary was incredibly strong-willed, far more than Versi ever was. For the demon to fully unleash its powers, to completely dominate Gary's consciousness, would take considerable time. A year seems calculated.
Then we should attack immediately, Jack said, slamming his fist on the table.
Before he gets stronger, before he becomes impossible to defeat.
No, that would be foolish, Ray said calmly, though his jaw was tight. We'd be walking directly into Shadow Plague territory. It's exactly what they want us to do. They'll have every advantage. Knowledge of the terrain, ambush points prepared, reinforcements nearby. We'd be slaughtered before we got halfway to the fortress.
Gary knows how I think. He knows I'd consider an immediate strike. This entire setup is designed to force me into a trap no matter what I choose.
Then what about Avrion? Jack pressed, his voice rising with frustration. What about Slivia and everyone there? What if Gary and his demon attack earlier than they said? What if this whole 1 year thing is a lie to make us drop our guard? Ray shook his head. I think Lenny's theory is correct. Gary, or rather the demon controlling him, genuinely plans to attack in 1 year's time. The demon seems arrogant based on Ark's description. It probably believes that in a year, it will become completely unbeatable. A cold smile touched Ray's lips. What it doesn't realize, Ray continued, is that I can also become much stronger in that same year. Perhaps even strong enough to... He stopped himself, leaving the thought unfinished.
Strong enough to kill Gary if I have to,
Ray thought, the words bitter in his mind.
Can I do that? Could I actually kill him if there's no other way?
So, what should we do? Ark asked quietly. Just wait? For now, all of you continue as normal, Ray instructed. Gary may still be in the city, watching to see how we react. Don't give him any information. Act like everything is fine. Ray stood up from his chair. In the meantime, I'll teleport back to Avrion and discuss matters with the elders there. They need to know about the
We
threat.
can teleport.
Before anyone could question his decision or offer to come with him, Ray had already activated his teleportation skill. The familiar magical circle appeared beneath his feet, glowing bright white. Within seconds, he vanished.
The boy really does do whatever he wants, doesn't he?
Lenny said with a mixture of admiration and exasperation. Jack stared at the empty space where Ray had been standing.
I don't know. He seemed more bothered by this than I expected.
Did you notice how tight his voice was? How were his hands clenched? What are you saying? Mark asked.
Ray won't admit it,
Jack said slowly.
but I think he's genuinely worried about Gary. Maybe even scared. Not of fighting him, but of him getting hurt.
Back at Avrion, Slivia had gathered her team at the city's main gate. Martha, Dan, Badger, Sloth, and Kyle. They all wore dark cloaks with hoods pulled up, dressed for stealth rather than combat. Slivia's plan was to secretly leave the city tonight and scout the Dark Guild's territory, hoping to find information about where Monk was being held. As an elder, Slivia was an important political figure. If Sir Kay or Wilfred discovered she was planning such a dangerous mission, they'd immediately forbid it and possibly place her under house arrest for her own protection. Just as the group was about to slip through a side entrance in the gate, a bright magical light suddenly illuminated the area beside Slivia. Ray, Dan stammered, pointing with a shaking finger. Slivia spun around to find Ray standing there, having just materialized from his teleportation. His red hair caught the light from the gate torches, and his expression was unreadable as he surveyed the cloaked figures before him. Of all the timing, Slivia thought, her heart sinking. Now just what were you all planning to do? Ray asked, his voice dangerously calm. Slivia laughed nervously, the sound forced and artificial. Oh, you know, just taking a late-night walk as a group in full cloaks at the city gate. Ray's eyebrow raised. We were going to rescue Monk, Martha blurted out, unable to maintain the deception. Slivia shot her a look, but the damage was done. Back into your rooms, now! Ray sighed, watching his friends bolt out of there, shaking his head. The next morning, Ray gathered everyone he trusted most in one of Avrion Academy's...
Total 4 miles. 1 hour 37 minutes 30 seconds. Steps 10,155 steps.
And Rusty the Dwarf, whose expertise would be... Slivia's rescue team was there, along with Wilfred. Ray had also summoned Vaughn and Rusty the Dwarf, whose expertise would be crucial to what Ray had planned. The early morning sun streamed through the windows of the I still can't believe Gary has been possessed, Slivia said, her voice heavy with grief. Do you think, could something similar have happened to Monk? That would be my assessment as well, Ray replied. In fact, I believe Monk and Gary may have even been taken to the same fortress, just past the borders of Avrion City. It's called Gortheim, according to the message Gary gave Art. It's fortunate I caught you when I did, Slivia, Ray continued. Based on Gary's confidence and the location he chose, they're clearly prepared to fight us on their home territory. If you'd gone sneaking into Dark Guild territory with just 5 people, you'd have walked into a death trap. Slivia looked down, shame coloring her cheeks. I know it was reckless. I couldn't stand doing nothing. I understand, Ray said more gently, but we need to be smart about this. Emotion can't guide our strategy. So what do you plan to do, Ray? Wilfred asked, leaning forward in his chair. Win, Ray said simply. I plan to win this war. Yes, waiting is probably what the demon wants. It gives them time to grow stronger. But I believe we can grow even more powerful than they anticipate. We have advantages they don't know about. Ray turned to Slivia. Has the guild hall been finished? Yes. Construction was completed a few days ago, Slivia confirmed. It's fully operational. Good. Ray began pacing, his mind clearly working through multiple strategies simultaneously. Here's what we're going to do. First, we continue to expand the Red Wings Guild. We allow adventurers to come and go from this city freely, taking quests, earning money, and building reputations. We make Avrion look like a thriving hub of commerce and opportunity. But why? Sir Kay started to ask. Because, Ray interrupted, no one can learn about the planned attack. If word spreads that a demon army might assault the city in a year, adventurers will flee. Merchants will stop coming. We'll be isolated and weakened. Fear is a weapon our enemies would love to wield against us. Ray pointed at Slivia. Your job is to recruit. Anyone with talent, anyone with potential, anyone willing to fight. Bring them into the Red Wings. We need numbers. He turned to Rusty. Rusty, I'm placing you in charge of all blacksmith operations. Gather every skilled craftsman in the city. I want you to create the best equipment. Whatever you need, you'll have it. Rusty nodded seriously, his fingers already twitching as if imagining the weapons he'd forge. I plan to win this war, Ray said again, his voice
Almost like a
carrying
dragon
absolute
head on
conviction.
a shield or
Not
something.
just survive it, win it. And what about you, Ray? Wilfred asked carefully. What will you be doing during this year? For a moment, something flickered across Ray's face. Pain, perhaps, or determination so fierce it bordered on rage. I have unfinished business to deal with, Ray said. I've met with a very intelligent individual who believes he can help me discover the secrets behind these cursed weapons, including the gauntlet that possesses Gary. If I can understand how they work, I might be able to break their hold. With Ray's instructions given, the meeting concluded. Everyone left to begin their assigned tasks, the weight of the coming year heavy on their their shoulders. Later that afternoon, Ray found himself walking through the academy grounds with no particular destination in mind. His feet carried him automatically toward the Black Sash training mansion, the place where he, Gary, Monk, and Kyle had spent countless hours learning to fight. Outside on the green grass, Kyle was currently training a group of new students. He'd taken over Monk's teaching duties after Monk's disappearance. When Kyle spotted Ray, he called for the students to continue their drills and jogged over. "Ray, I didn't know you were back." "Just arrived last night," Ray replied. They began walking together around the mansion's grounds, neither speaking for a while. Finally, Kyle stopped walking and turned to face the mansion. "It's strange, isn't it?" Kyle said quietly. "The four of us all started together in this place, and now..." His voice trailed off. He clenched his fists so tightly, his knuckles turned white. "Now it's just us two," Kyle finished. "Ray," Kyle said, his voice shaking with intensity. "We need to bring them back. Both of them. I don't believe for a single second that Monk or Gary has truly betrayed us. They wouldn't. Not willingly. We know them better than anyone." Ray had been walking around the mansion without consciously deciding to. This place represented a brief period when things had been simple, when the biggest worry was class rankings and training scores. Always forget he was a dragon pretending to be human and just be a student. The Shadow Plague had taken that from him. First, as a dragon, when humans had hunted his kind. Now, as Ray, when the darkness tried to claim everyone he cared about. He never admitted out loud, never showed weakness by acknowledging that these people meant something to him beyond their usefulness. But standing here with Kyle, looking at the place where they'd all laughed and fought and grown together, Ray couldn't deny the truth to himself. He was worried. Genuinely, deeply worried in a way he hadn't allowed himself to feel in decades. What if he couldn't save them? What if Gary was too far gone, like his father? What if Monk had been changed into something unrecognizable? What if I have to kill them? The thought made something twist painfully in Ray's chest. "Kyle," Ray said, his voice rougher than usual, "I promise you, I'll bring them back." "Both of them?" Kyle asked, hope and fear warring in his eyes. "Both of them," Ray confirmed. "Whatever it takes, however long it takes, I'll bring Gary and Monk home.
Where'd Gary's sword
Even
go?
if I have to tear down that entire fortress brick by brick. Even if I have to fight every demon in the Shadow Plague's army. Even if it costs me everything," Ray thought fiercely. With Avrion now preparing for the looming war, Ray decided to teleport back to Kelberg to rejoin Jack and the others. He needed to coordinate their next moves and ensure nothing was overlooked while he'd been away. When Ray materialized in the tavern, their usual meeting spot, he was surprised to find the entire investigation team already gathered. Even more surprising, they were drinking and laughing, the atmosphere almost festive despite the dire circumstances they faced. "Wasn't expecting you back so soon," Lenny said with a broad smile, raising his mug in greeting. "Come, join us. Have a drink. You look like you could use one." Ray agreed to sit down at their table, but firmly refused the offered ale. He'd never understood humans' obsession with alcohol. The taste was bitter and unpleasant, and the way it made people act, loud, clumsy, speaking without thinking, seemed more like a curse than entertainment. "Has there been any new information about Gary's whereabouts?" Ray asked, getting straight to business. Lenny set down his mug, his expression growing more serious. "No concrete sightings, I'm afraid, but I do have my suspicions about where he might have gone." "What suspicions?" Art leaned forward intently. "While making my daily rounds through the castle earlier today," Lenny explained, "I happened to overhear some guards talking near the east wing. They were discussing the garden, specifically how the ancient statue had been moved out of position and the hidden door beneath it had been opened. Ark shot to his feet so quickly, his chair scraped loudly against the floor. Wait, isn't that where the divine being is located? The one Lily told us about? His voice rose with frustration. Why are you only telling us this now? That's crucial information. Lenny took a long, deliberate gulp of his beer before responding, completely unbothered by Ark's outburst. I only discovered this information a few hours ago, Lenny said calmly. And besides, even if Gary truly has gone underground, do you honestly think the three of us would be strong enough to confront him? Jack is powerful, certainly, but against a demon-possessed Gary with that cursed gauntlet? He shook his head. We needed to wait for Ray anyway. Better to wait and go in with our full strength, than rush in and get ourselves killed. Do you think Gary's target is the divine being itself? Ray asked, considering the implications. Possibly, but I highly doubt it, Lenny replied thoughtfully. The divine being's power is immense, even in its current dormant state. Although it exists only as a crystallized consciousness at the moment, it's quite capable of defending itself, especially against servants of the Shadow Plague. Ray stood up from his seat, his decision made. Well, what are we waiting for then? Let's finally go pay this divine being a proper visit. I have some questions of my own that need answering anyway. The group made their way back to the castle as evening fell, darkness providing cover for their plans. This time they weren't going through the front entrance. They needed to sneak into the castle garden under the cover of night and access the underground tunnels without alerting anyone. The statue that concealed the entrance to the tunnels was a closely guarded secret, known only to a select few castle servants and the mayor himself. Outsiders were absolutely forbidden from learning about it, let alone using